Hi Virgos, welcome to your February 2019 Tarology 33 reading. We have the Celtic Cross spread in front of us, which is normally a 10 card spread, but you guys got a few extra cards in some of the positions. Then we have two Oracle cards that we read at the end, and also a mudra card that I'm going to read at the end as well. So quite a bit to get to. A lot of major arcana on the table. That isn't too uncommon when I'm recording around eclipses, so I'm not too surprised about that, but because there are a lot of major arcana, I'll go a bit more big picture with the some of the cards. But we'll get started going through them one by one. In the main position, we have the Temperance card. So speaking of the bigger picture, right out of the gate, we have the major arcana card for Sagittarius. So for some of you, of course it's possible that you could be dealing with a Sagittarius, but with the major arcanas especially, I usually try to think about the energies more than representing an actual physical person. Although usually if it is a physical person, it's someone, that's fated to cross your path. But looking at this, where my mind goes usually is, okay, what does Sagittarius represent for Virgo? And that's the fourth house, right? Which is your family, early conditioning, basically. And right now, the next thing I would do is look at where the ruler of that sign is, and it just so happens that Jupiter rules Sagittarius and is in the sign of Sagittarius, so that made it easier for me to figure out that, okay, for a lot of you, this could just be coming to balance maybe with your home and family life. That's one possibility. Others of you could just be having a focus on that area of life. Because what I found interesting is in the challenger obstacle position, we have the Lovers card and the Nine of Wands. So this is actually another Sagittarius card for me. It represents the middle 10 degrees of Sagittarius. And then this is actually the Gemini card, the major arcana card for Gemini. So of course, this is opposite Sagittarius. So it was interesting to me because I thought on one hand, okay, well, this might actually be emphasizing that, yes, you actually are dealing with a Sagittarius. And maybe the challenge is to actually bring something to a higher level with this person as far as a relationship goes. And here's why I say that. So I'll put these two cards side by side. And the way I view it is like those two cups. Hold on, let me get these focused. Those two cups are basically, to me, representing the energies, right? So let's say this is you thinking about a relationship. Okay, this is what I want a relationship to be, right? I mean, you guys are Virgos, of course, you think these things through, right? But then the challenge is to actually have it play out that way when you actually have humans involved, right? Meaning that, you have this concept, though, this is what I want a relationship to be. It's going to be perfectly balanced, it's going to be all these things. We're going to have that perfect blend of being grounded, right, with one foot on the ground there, and that mixed with emotions, right? So everything's going to be perfect. But then when it actually comes to you and another person coming together, right, then that's where it gets a bit trickier. So, that's one thing that I started to see when I was looking at these cards. Another could be obviously with a Sagittarius, you want to have a commitment with them, and this could be their perspective. They're like, I don't know, because I mean, come on, if we go with the stereotypes, Sagittarius can be a bit hard to pin down, certainly. But that's just kind of what I was feeling, though. That it's an energy thing, that it's like you have this concept in your mind of how a relationship should go. But then in the reality of it, right? Like I said, if we look at these cups being replaced by those people, if we think to ourselves, well, we have an angel here, an angel there. When, basically, so how it plays out in your head and how it plays out in the physical world are very different. And that leaves you feeling a bit, guarded at the very least, right? So that's the vibe that I was getting there. And another reason I thought of that too is because, again, going back to the fact that you have Sagittarius in your fourth Sagittarius is your fourth house, and Jupiter is there. Jupiter was actually squaring Neptune in your opposite sign, which has to do with relationships. So to me, that could be bringing up some of those, I wouldn't say illusions that you have in that area of life, but it could just be, the Jupiter energy could be forcing you to look at that. Like, for example, since it is the fourth house, these could be beliefs that you've had since childhood. Like I said, maybe it's just how you were raised, right? Oh, this is how a relationship goes. One person does this, one person does that, right? But then in your actual real life relationships, it's been difficult for things to play out that way. And that might have you feeling a bit frustrated and guarded, like, okay, I don't get it. Why isn't this playing out the way that I want it to, right? And you guys have Chiron about to leave your seventh house, finally, right? I'm Virgo rising, so trust me, I get it. But Chiron's going to be leaving your seventh house towards the end of the month, too. So that could be, you're finally integrating those final lessons as well. But yeah, that's the vibe that I was getting there primarily. But for on a more simple level, it could just be trying to find that balance because, for you guys, Gemini is your 10th house, Sagittarius is your 4th house. So maybe it's struggling to strike that balance between your home and family life and your career. That could be what's going on there. In the foundation position, we have the Tower card. So everyone dreads seeing this card for the most part. I do tend to see this card as a divine intervention type thing because, that's what the lightning bolt represents. And then you have the fact that, it's hitting this tower. Basically, we have an expectation that it shouldn't cause the type of damage that it did there, right? So again, maybe this is going back to that same concept of these are the images you had or the concepts you had of what a relationship should be like, right? So you build these things up in your head in that way, and then something comes along to shatter that for you. So like I said, whether it's just a shift in your perception, like I said, maybe possibly brought out by that square with Jupiter and Neptune, or the fact that Chiron will be leaving your sign soon. So I mean your opposite sign soon. So there's that final integration of those lessons there. Something sudden seems to come along to change your perception about how these things should go, quote unquote. That's what I'm feeling primarily. For some of you, this could be an actual, like I said again, if there is a struggle, maybe when we say home life, that could include for those of you who are in a relationship, maybe, your career and your home life is not in balance right now, and that could cause a separation with someone that you're with for those of you already in a relationship. Especially because I do see the Seven of Swords at the bottom of the deck there, too. So anything's possible in that regard. And then, I mean, if we're looking at what this could be about, you guys, we did just have an eclipse basically yesterday. I'm recording this on the 21st. So that was in your 12th house. For some of you, it could have been your 11th house, though, since it was right at 0 degrees Leo. So, I mean, for some of you, this could have been a friendship. Maybe you had put someone up on a pedestal, and then, something came along to rock that foundation. But yeah, I mean, for most of you, like I said, I get the feeling that this is more of an image type thing that you have going on that is changing for you in some way, shape, or form. But as we go along, we'll see if there's other indicators that point to it maybe being something more physical than just an idea. Because my thing is you had the North Node moving through your 12th house. So sometimes, that's the house of your inner thoughts. Basically, if you look at the 6th house, sometimes is physical health. Sometimes we could think of the 12th house as your mental health. So, these could be self-sabotaging beliefs that you might have had, some, just ways you were holding yourself back. And with the North Node moving through that house for the past year and a half or so, it was really asking you to look at that area, clean it up some. And even though it's moved on now, the North Node's now into your 11th house, that final eclipse there, for me, I felt that was, for a lot of people, just the final, tying up the final integration of the lessons that those transits were supposed to teach you. Just like that one last check-in to see, okay, did you really get it or what? In the past position, we have the World card. So I actually view this as my North Node card. So again, it goes back to what I was just saying about Leo, especially when we do see this has the fixed signs on it as well. Um, but more importantly, this does tend to represent completion. Like I say to people, sometimes I view the Magician card as like the South Node, where you see him holding up the Soul contract. The World card is the North Node, where you actually have your Soul contract and quote unquote your diploma for completing your life's path. So you could just say that you completed something big, and maybe that's even pointing to all of this here, saying that you successfully did complete the lessons that the North Node transiting through the 12th house was supposed to teach you. But this could just be pointing to the fact that in general, with those nodes in those positions, and then we had Jupiter in Scorpio, and Uranus at least came into Taurus for a bit. It's headed back that way soon, but there was a lot going on in the fixed signs over the past year. So that could be what that's pointing back to, that you completed something big last year. For some of you on a more mundane level, could just say that you were traveling a lot recently. And I mean, some people say that that card represents Saturn for them. I can see that as well. To me, it's more of like the North Node energy playing out. But if it is Saturn, then this would be related to your fifth house, then, because that's where Saturn is right now. But yeah, mainly I'm just getting the feel that, again, these are more concepts than actual physical events. But obviously, they all come together for your growth, essentially. In the present position, we have the Ten of Pentacles. So this is actually a Virgo card, the last 10 degrees of Virgo. So there's that. The way I usually think of it is it's almost like double Mercury energy related to the earth element. So, it's usually thinking over finances. The way I look at this is I say, one way we could see this play out is this could totally represent a family, right? Maybe this is the grandfather, that's his children, one of those two, and then that's their children, so his grandchild. Just representing family. And again, going back to the Temperance card being representing your fourth house, this could certainly be you dealing with family right now. But on a more cautionary level, I do say to people that sometimes I actually see this card a little bit differently, as far as, this is an assumption that we would make that, okay, this is his relatives, right? But another way I look at it is, this could be an older person who, dedicated themselves more to career. They're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want my life to be. And then they decided to forego pursuing love and family, right? And now maybe at that old age, okay, we can see they have all those pentacles, right? They have all the financial benefits from that work. But are they necessarily happy, right? It looks like the guy's alone. They're not directly acknowledging him, at least from what I could see, right? So that's why I say sometimes I see it that way as well. And if you are trying to think of that, again, if this is a conflict between the fourth and 10th house for you, with these, like I said, Sag is your fourth, Gemini is your 10th, then that could be what you're trying to figure out right now. You might be at a bit of a crossroads in that regard. That could be what's going on there. In the near future position, we have the Four of Swords, the Four of Cups, and the Seven of Pentacles. So to me, all of these cards seem to support that energy as well, which is me saying that, these do kind of represent crossword energies to me a bit. These two cards, and then this one as well. All of them are mutable energies, actually. Well, really, this is cardinal to me mixed with mutable. Cardinal mixed with mutable, and then this is fixed mixed with mutable. So, but yeah, the way that I'm seeing this is, you might be healing from something. Again, if this was a relationship that broke up, maybe you're healing from it. Maybe someone's trying to reconcile with you, if that's the case, and you're not really too impressed with their offers, and you might be considering, with that Four of Swords, if you even want to continue putting in more effort with that person, right? Like, okay, we got this far. There was this tower moment. We're only this much further, Is it worth all of the time and energy it took me to get this far with this person, right? Sometimes this is comparison too. Like the way I say that I see this card sometimes is this person could be comparing what someone else has compared to what they have, right? Like, well, I don't get it. I've been putting in the same amount of work as everyone else, or at least this person here. They have 6 pentacles, I only have this one. You know what I mean? What's going on? So comparing yourself in that regard, especially if that's the areas of life you have been looking at too. If it is relationships, you might feel, again, like I said, if that really is where you've been approaching it from, which was you have this image of how it should play out in your head, but then in the reality, when there's actually, you and another person involved, you typically end up like this at the end of the day, right? So I could be saying that you're at that point, just not even really wanting to accept any offers. Maybe that's what it's saying too, because you're still trying to heal and integrate the lessons there and trying to figure out, what is the best way forward. People might be making offers to you, but you're just not ready at this point. That could be what's going on there. This could be in any area of life too, though. But this is definitely an energy of healing, resting up, thinking. This one to me is a bit more of a frustrating energy because the way I look at this, the Four of Cups is like, okay, the person clearly doesn't like what they're being offered, right? But yet they're still sitting there with their arms crossed. They're not leaving, right? So to me, this represents, okay, so you don't want this, but what do you want, right? Because the universe sees you still sitting there stuck in the same place. It's going to assume, okay, we're just going to bring you more of that same thing, right? So, and then this is kind of a stuck energy here too, right? It's like, okay, well, if you weren't happy with those 6, why are you trying to continue to grow more, right? You could keep accumulating more and more of these, but if you're not happy what you already had, then what more do you expect to get out of it, right? So that's what I see going on there. Then in the position of your influence on the situation, we have the Knight of Swords. There we go. And we have the Moon. So this is actually the court card for Gemini. And then the Moon, looking at this, again, this could be pointing to the fact that you just had the eclipse, like I said, that what happened in your 12th house. But to me, I also think about the fact that there's going to be a full moon in your sign around the 20th or so of March, I think. Oh, excuse me, February. So that could be what that's pointing to as well. And actually, the way that I'm really seeing this when I think about it is the new moon is actually going to be in Aquarius early on in February. So even though this is a Gemini card, this could be pointing to that because that new moon in Aquarius is actually going to be more or less conjunct with Mercury. So if we look at this more of representing Mercury in communication, this could just be saying that that new moon has you feeling this way, ready to communicate something, ready to move in some kind of way. So coming out of this energy here, feeling stuck, a bit stagnant, and ready to move. But just be careful you don't cause a tower moment if that's not what you're going for, right? Because if we look at where they're pointed, they're headed right towards that tower. So given that the moon is underneath it, that could mean that you might not be seeing things too clearly. Again, going back to like I was saying, that Jupiter with Neptune square, even though that energy is dissipating as the month goes on in February, it's still somewhat in play. So maybe something that a conclusion you thought you arrived at with that square, that's great, but it might not be accurate. That could happen sometimes with Neptune transits, and unfortunately for us, it's going to be in your 7th house for a while. So that energy is not going to be leaving anytime soon. But yeah, that could be what that's pointing to. Just saying to be careful there. But for one, when you have a new moon with Mercury, since Mercury is your ruler, that has some significance automatically. But then also to me, I look at the fact that Aquarius for you is your 6th house. And you, being the sixth sign of the zodiac, you're the natural ruler of the sixth house. So that might actually make you feel a bit reborn in a way in that regard, as far as, while it's not necessarily an aspect people would think, oh, Virgo and Aquarius, right? You guys have that kind of symbiotic relationship there, as far as that's the house you naturally rule. So when things happen in Aquarius, you tend to feel them a bit more. All right. And then the position of the environment's influence on a situation, we have the Chariot card. So this also, to me, points to the nodes sometimes, because this being a card of Cancer, when we refer to North Node, South Node, we're referring to the nodes of the moon. So I'm like, okay, if this is South Node, North Node, right, that could be pointing to the shift going there. And like I said, it did recently move into the sign of Cancer as well. So this could just be saying that you're making some new friendships, maybe a new friendship group, and maybe that's what's helping you shift some beliefs that you might have had, just being exposed to a new group of people. For some of you, this could represent long distance travel, certainly. For others of you, it's not out of the question that you could be dealing with a Cancer. Like I said, with the major arcanas, especially when there's a lot of them like this, I don't always look at them as specific people. But if it were, it would be, like I said, most likely it'd be a Cancer if that was the case. And then again, we can't look past the fact that, again, this represents the moon as well, since Cancer is ruled by the moon, and you have the full moon in your sign. So could just be pointing to that again, saying that when that energy comes through, things are going to shift for you, and you get that forward momentum. So all this moon energy stuff going on here, I have a feeling that something, if it wasn't already because of the eclipse that happened, something with either the new moon in Aquarius or the full moon in your sign might cause some kind of a shift in forward momentum. All right, and then the position of hopes or fears, you got the Four of Wands and the Justice card. So I'm going to assume that both of these are a hope, right? You're just hoping for a balanced, stable environment, especially if this is a relationship. But I can't help but look at the fact that the Seven of Swords, it's almost like the guy's looking right at that, right? So for those of you who have been deceived, right, maybe it was someone that built something up for you, right? They gave you every reason to believe that, yeah, we're going to build a stable relationship. And then at the end of the day, it ended up being all a bunch of BS, right? I mean, I don't see any cards in reverse here. I would really emphasize that energy. But with this at the bottom of the deck, have to at least say that it's a possibility with the Tower there. And, if that's the case, again, if someone gave you that impression that that's where things were going and it ended up not being true, then obviously you want justice, right? In that case, that's perfectly normal, natural. And when I did Leo's reading, they actually had an energy. I think they had the Seven of Swords in their influence on the environment. And I was saying with them, I was getting the vibe that I just felt like some of them were leaving relationships and not even telling the other person. Like they were just gone. And I was like, for some of them, there might have been reason for that. Like, maybe they found something out about the person that was a game changer for them or a deal breaker. And they're like, I'm not even going to address it with this person. I'm just out here. And, I pointed out to them, I'm like, if they're Leo suns, quite a few of them might have had at least their Mercury or their Venus in Virgo. So, same thing for you guys, other way around. So maybe there's a connection there. If you guys also have prominent Leo placements in your chart, you might want to check out their reading too. Might give you a little bit more information on what's going on, or if you're dealing with a Leo, even though I don't see any Leo indicators in the spread itself. But, if you are, you definitely might want to check out their reading too. And then in the outcome position, we have the High Priestess. And it does not want to focus. But yeah, so the High Priestess for me, basically, usually I see this as one of the Pisces cards. Some people look at the moon, but for me, it's really the Hangman is the first one I see as a Pisces card, and then followed by this. But the other way I view it too is that spiritual feminine energy. I always say that this is someone who, has a firm control over their emotions, because I always view it as like, it looks like she has her foot on top of that moon symbol. So to me, it's like, all right, having control of your emotions, they're right in front of you. You're aware of them, and you have them well under control, basically. Um, Obviously, intuition plays a part here as well. And like I said, maybe you guys have that heightened intuition with the eclipse that just happened in your 12th house, and the fact that we already covered the node was moving through there for a while. That could have heightened that for you as well. Some of you could be dealing with someone. And again, this could just be pointing to the energy shifting to Pisces towards the end of the month as well. So yeah, that's what I'm getting there. All right, and then we'll take a look at the Oracle cards, see if they could add any additional layers to what we're looking at. So the card you guys got is the Fates. There's the artwork for it, and it's number 17. So actually what stands out to me there, looking at the Tower card right here, that's 16 in the Major Arcana, and then the next card would have been 17, which is the Star. And I refer to that as the dissolution of ego. And then if we look at the stars here in the image, so maybe there's a connection there, but I've definitely gotten this card before, but I don't remember all the messages. I think it actually speaks to sudden events, ironically, just like the Tower, so we'll see what this adds to it. Alright, it says essential meanings: fate, karma, acceptance that there are things you cannot change, and knowing what those things are. The Oracle's message: the Serenity Prayer sums up the meaning of this card. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are things in your life you will never have control over. The conditions brought on by the evolution of the collective, by nature, and by your past experiences may be fated, preordained by spirit for a greater purpose you cannot understand in this lifetime. It may not be in your cards to understand why certain events occurred, but you can accept the mystery and work with what those events and your current circumstances have to teach you. This is the wisdom contained in the Serenity Prayer. Okay, so maybe that's what the Tower moment's about there, right? Maybe it actually is something more that will play out in the physical world. I mean, like I said, I'm not getting that vibe as much, just as far as, to me, it was more like ideas, the structures in your belief system that might get rocked in some way. But yeah, like I said, for some of you, especially with that Seven of Swords there, you could find out something about someone that might bring an abrupt ending. And I mean, quite frankly, the way I look at it, the Chariot card here, this is a pretty supportive energy in the environment. So to me, the one thing I would say is if this Tower moment does come about, it looks like you would be a key player in it. So that's why I say be careful if that's not what you're going for, because with the Moon and the Knight of Swords, if that's the end result you're going for, you certainly could cause it. But that's what I'm saying. Just make sure that that is what you want to do. With these two energies at play and your influence on the situation, you just want to make sure you are seeing things clearly. All right, the relationship message says other people are who they are. You can't change them. The challenge is to accept them as they are and not try to make them otherwise to suit you. This is a time to look at how you attempt to mold people to fit your view of how they should be, so you can remain in the relationship and avoid discomfort. What if who they are, and whatever is happening between you and them in this situation, is perfect from the perspective of spirit? Now is the time to accept what you cannot change, even if it means that you honor yourself, spirit, and the other person by moving on. Love unconditionally, for each of us is on our own journey, and we cannot direct that of another. Be aware that this relationship is indeed fated, and you are meant to evolve into a better version of yourself as a result. So, that message for me brings back to what I was saying with the Temperance card and the Lovers, right? Where I was saying, like, in your head, you have this concept of, oh, this is how a relationship should go, right? This is, how our energies will mix, everything will go so smoothly, but then in the real world, you actually have humans involved, it's a human experience, and then you end up, you know, feeling that Nine of Wands energy, right? Where you're like, okay, you end up feeling hurt and, you know, just disappointed in the end. And maybe that's why it's saying, you know, and trust me, I'm not judging. Like I said, I'm Virgo rising, so that's a challenge that we can have, especially with Neptune in our seventh house. But I mean, our seventh house is naturally ruled by Pisces, so it's a pretty constant energy even without Neptune there. You know, it's a bit of a challenge for us. It could be a weak spot where you might, you know, project um, these images of how people should operate in relationships, and they don't always play out that way. So that could be what that's pointing to, and maybe you're finally, like I said, with the Jupiter squaring Neptune in your seventh house, that could be what really brings it to the forefront and forces you to address it in one way, shape, or form. Or Chiron finally moving out of your seventh house as well could also be what's pointing to that. All right. And then the prosperity message says, your experiences concerning prosperity and abundance are beyond your personal control right now. You are being invited to accept what is unreservedly. This could be a temporary situation seemingly thrust upon you by outside forces, but there is an underlying purpose you can't see that has been determined by the fates. It could be a situation you are unprepared for, and you may not understand how it will benefit you in the moment. Do not fight the situation. Ride it out and see where it leads. Surrender to it, and the serenity you need to make good choices from here on out will be given to you. You will indeed flourish. So, you know, as far as finances go, I don't really see you guys taking a hit there necessarily. I think maybe if it wasn't last month, maybe the month before, you guys might have had the Five of Pentacles on the table. But I mean, here we have the Ten of Pentacles, and I don't see anything that would necessarily negatively impact that going forward. Um, so, you know, but I'm sure that message will resonate for at least some of you. All right. And then from the other Oracle deck, which is the Spirit Animal Oracle, you guys got Groundhog Spirit. It says time to let go. So with this one, actually, the second I saw Groundhog, I started to think to myself, I'm like, wait, isn't Groundhog Day in February? And so I did cheat. I was like, let me look up real quick when that is, because I'm pretty sure it's in February. So I'm like, maybe this has to do, you know, maybe this ties into the larger theme too, since it is in February and it's February 2nd. So I was like, all right, that's a little bit before that new moon that's going to be happening in Aquarius. I think that's a couple days after that. So I was just trying to see, well, what else is going on around that time. And Mars is going to be squaring Pluto in your fifth house. So Pluto's in your fifth, Mars is in your eighth. So that could be about control there too. So as far as like it was saying in this other card here about, you know, control, and then this saying time to let go, that might be pointing to that weekend, like right out the gate in February. You guys might have this situation play out for you. But let me read the messages for that card. But yeah, I had to look that up because I was like, otherwise it's going to drive me nuts the whole reading, trying to figure out when Groundhog Day is. But yeah, it says endings lead to beginnings and death is a part of life. So Groundhog Spirit is here to let you know that it is time to accept the natural ending of something that is no longer serving you. We love to hold on to what is familiar, but the new needs space to arrive so growth can occur. When Groundhog Spirit appears, it is a sign that there is something in your present situation that you need to let go of so that something new can be born, something that will far better serve you now. When the groundhog sees his shadow, he retreats to his den. So too might you yearn for a little more time to say goodbye and transition into the new. However, change is coming and it is good, so let go of your resistance. Spring brings many blessings, and what must die will always be reborn in a new form that will be right for you. Life requires change and detachment. Say farewell to what whatever once served you and get ready for something amazing to take its place. Spirit is already sending it your way. So, Spirit is already sending it your way. That made me think back to the Chariot card. That's now how I'm viewing that after reading that sentence. This could just be, like it said, something fated coming along your way. And with the tower here and the foundation, maybe that's exactly what it is. You know, something sudden comes to an end. Like I said, even if it's just an idea, a concept that you've had that needed to go, basically. Something happens that shifts that perspective for you, and then something new comes along right after that to fill its place. Um, and then when the groundhog sees the shadow, or he retreats to his den, that almost made me think of the Hermit card too, which is the major arcana card for Virgo. So, you know, and then the Four of Swords energy there. So maybe something does kind of really throw you off course for a bit this month, but don't look like you stay there for long. Like I said, between the Chariot and the environment position, and then the Knight of Swords is your energy. Looks like you'll be raring to go after a short bit. All right, and then lastly, I pulled a mudra card for you guys. So if you didn't see last month, I was actually pulling mudra cards for all the signs. And what a mudra is basically, it's just a hand gesture or pose. You usually hold it while you're meditating. So normally you want to do it for at least 5 minutes. Some say to do half hour, 45 minutes. I know for me that would be a bit overkill personally, but you know, like I said, 5 minutes is still at least decent. And basically, what it is, you hold it while you meditate, and depending on the specific mudra, it can help clear different blockages in your life. The keyword for this one is courage. So, I mean, at the very least, that seems to support the Knight of Swords energy. So, if it is something that you do need to end, by all means, then it looks like this could help with that. But I'll flip it to the back so we could actually look at the messages, and I'll, you know, let it focus so you guys could pause it or take a screenshot if you want to. And now let's move it up so you can see the rest of the messages as well. Oh, and it's the Abhaya mudra, by the way. And it benefits, it says, calms the mind, reduces anxiety and inner conflict, removes attachment and aversion to thoughts, emotions, and sensations, serves as a form of protection from negativity. So I'll put that in the actual, I'll put the name of that in the description as well in case you guys want to look it up on Google or maybe YouTube if you're interested in getting more info on it. But yeah, that's all I had for this month, guys. Bit of a weird reading in a way, but hopefully it resonated for some of you. Like I said, a lot of major arcana, sometimes I try to keep a more big picture than to try to focus in too heavy on something, but it ended up kind of coming out that way anyway. But if you want a personal reading, you can check out the About section of my channel for more info on that. And you could also follow me on Instagram where we have a little bit more fun with astrology and tarot there. But if not, I'll see you guys next month. All right, bye.